So good morning, everybody. Let us start with our prayer for teacher-student, peace prayer. Why we say these prayers is so that what follows may be inspirational and may be enlightening, and it sets the tone, prayerful tone for any discourse. Om Sahana Bhavatu Saha no punuktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditam Astu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us both. May we work together with great vigor. May our study be illumined. May we not unnecessarily cavil with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Well, today's talk really is an answer to a question, because I was with a devotee a few days back, and we were devising the program, and I said, can you please, do you have a question? And if you have a question, then we'll make that the theme of the talk for Saturday. Well, the question was, how can I concentrate? It was just as simple as that. And the meaning was really in the context of meditation. When I sit and meditate, all kinds of things go on. I discipline myself to sit there for a certain period of time. But then a restless mind makes me get up. And I'm trying to increase the time longer and longer. But I get up and then go and do other things. Now, if you ask what other things there are, the chances are the other things that were being done are things that this person would have thought of when they sat down for meditation. And so, how to concentrate? How to concentrate specifically in meditation, but there's a wider scope, because how to concentrate in general. What's the use of concentration to start with? We should really think of many things, and multitasking is said to be beneficial and so on. But all of us know that any major mistakes that are being made in work, whether it is at a nuclear plant, or whether it is at our domestic work, or taking care of children, or whether it is in a workplace, all the errors that are being made is really down to lack of concentration. And lack of concentration is a condition in the mind which says that things are scattered. What I kind of call the Homer Simpson syndrome. If you ever watch the cartoon Homer Simpson, or The Simpsons, I think it is, then you'll see that Homer Simpson cannot concentrate. And we call this the butterfly effect. What it means is, in the midst of something, a butterfly floats around, and he says, oh, a butterfly, and starts chasing it. There's a story about, in Buddhism, about a person who was faced with a tiger on the one side and a tiger on the other side. The tiger on the one side was chasing him, and the man comes to a cliff, and as he looks below, another tiger is looking up with a voracious appetite, smacking his lips, thinking, beautiful meal I'll have. Now, the interesting thing is, all of these three components, the man being chased, the tiger chasing, and the tiger at the bottom of the cliff, are all in a state of concentration. The tiger has one pointed goal, and that is to eat the man, to catch him, to chase him, catch him, and devour him, overcome him and devour him. The tiger at the bottom, in anticipation, is watching for the man to come and fall off the cliff or jump off the cliff. And the man is motivated by fear, concentrating on getting away. And so the man starts climbing down the cliff, having no alternative. And in the midst of everything, he grabs onto a root thinking that he will stay there until the danger passes. And as he sees that root and he's catching it, he sees a rat coming along and start nibbling at the root. And all of a sudden, he sees a beautiful strawberry and says, "Oh, what a lovely strawberry." Everything has been forgotten. And when we look at the state of our mind, we can very much see this kind of profile. Let us take ourselves as we were children. Of course, the moment of concentration is a visual moment. That's seeing the blur through eyes of a child, trying to make out something. And a child is like a sponge. The child will absorb enormous amounts of information and knowledge in the first 2 years of its life. When you think of it, child is learning a whole new language from the start. And yet in adulthood, how difficult it is to pick up a new language, be it Spanish or French or Hindi or whatever it is. We have to take extra lessons. We may have to go to a teacher. We may have to study books on a daily basis, collect a number of nouns and so on, increase our vocabulary, learn the grammatical rules, all of these. And yet a child picks it up almost naturally because they're extremely interested in this new adventure called life. And somehow as we grow older, these kinds of interests leave us. So how to be concentrated really is equivalent to answering the question or asking the question, how can we take our attention and fix it? Fix it. Fix your mind on me, says Krishna in many places. But the one place he tells us really is in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam eva shasi satyam te pratijane priyosimi. Fix your mind. Fix your mind on what? On me, that is, on the divine, on God. Be devoted to me, worship me, prostrate before me. So shall you come to me, and this is my promise to you, for you are dear to me. Now, it's worthwhile taking this apart, as it were, and finding out what this means, because how many people can fix their attention on something? We find we do it quite easily when we are entertained, or we find it momentarily when something impinges on us from the outside. Let us say there's a big crash, a big accident happens. Immediately we rush to a window. Every child will do it in a school. Rush to the window and find out what was happening. And so the senses alert us to external things, and the internal corresponding attention moves toward that. And that, of course, goes as soon as the object of our attention moves on, then the attention goes on to another subject. We can take this instrument of the mind called attention as a kind of probing mechanism, and we do have control over it. Whether we use that control or not, that's something different, but we have control over it. Like a gear stick, we can shift it here, shift it there. And we use this power of attention while driving a car, for example, until, of course, we no longer have to be as attentive, but we have a spontaneous reaction to somebody jumping out in the road, or a car suddenly stops. And if our attention wanders, then it could well be a danger that can produce an accident. So how easy is it to fix the mind when our attention is either in one of three conditions, according to the yogis: a scattered condition, or a torpid condition, or it is a condition that is in between, sometimes scattered, sometimes lazy, and sometimes concentrated. But real concentration is ekagra, one-pointedness, where everything is fixed and nothing else. We know nothing else. We see our natural ability to do this in the example I gave you, in a fearful situation or a situation which gives us a potential for entertaining the senses. That means drawing the senses out. Somebody who is absorbed in a book, somebody who is absorbed in a movie, somebody who is absorbed in a certain activity that is so interesting that they cannot move from it, or so inspiring, elevating our attention even more to something that is all-absorbing. Let us take, for example, the genius in the area of science, or the genius in the area of the arts. Somebody so absorbed in music and composition of music, not just in a mechanical way. And there's the other key, that the whole person engages in it somehow. That is not just the eyes and the ears, but the total person is engaged. This is really equivalent to fixing the mind. But look at the object of it. Now, in yoga, yoga, of course, as a philosophy, contained in Dhyana Yoga or the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, is all about concentration. The whole thing is about concentration. If you will, it is a manual on concentration. And yoga, by definition, is concentration, derived from two roots, yaj and yajir. One meaning joining, assuming that there's a separation between subject and object, a kind of linking there. We can use it in a number of different contexts. The Bhagavad Gita curiously gives us another definition for yoga. That is the disconnection, viyoga, the disconnection from our attachment to pain. And everybody would wish for it. So what are the benefits of concentration? Firstly, efficiency. According to the Bhagavad Gita, what is yoga? Equanimity of mind. And you see, efficiency, that is skill in action. It is not sitting necessarily. No mention of sitting is made at this point in the Bhagavad Gita. The whole idea of meditation in a formal sense only comes in 1/18th, if you say every chapter is equal, which it's not. But let us say 1/18th of the parts of the Bhagavad Gita. That is, a very small proportion is dedicated to Dhyana Yoga, the yoga of meditation, 6th chapter, with some references in the 5th chapter also. But such a thing requires preparation. And if we have a scattered mind in our normal 99.99% of our day and expect our mind to be steady in concentration, in meditation, then, of course, we have not understood that the background to meditation is perpetual meditation, described variously. And here it's described as fixing. We have some examples from our stories. For example, we have Prahlad, whose attention is fixed on the North Star, really, is what it is. So we have some examples of this fixity of mind. Now, we can also understand in our own life at moments where we do have attention and how easily the attention can be shifted and how circumstances can easily do it. But when we consciously, deliberately do it, this is really the art of meditation, or the art of guiding thought, or as I prefer to call it, the game of guiding thought. What kind of game? Well, if a scattered mind is due to different kinds of habits, then if we are to cultivate a steady mind, a counter habit has to be done. That means we have to have the capacity to observe. So, be devoted to me is the next thing, which is done because we are engaging. This is the language of devotion, devotional language. In other words, devotion, love of God, is a means to this concentration. And remarkably, the Bhagavad Gita agrees. It tells us that there are various kinds of meditation, various kinds of samadhi as it's described. And one kind of samadhi will be this capacity to engage in what is called faith, energy or memory, and devotion or discrimination. So, in other words, there is scope also for this devotional kind of concentration. It's the easiest way. If you ask me what's the easiest way, this is the easiest way. In other words, mobilizing the heart. We're mobilizing the heart, that is mobilizing our feelings. We're also mobilizing everything else. See how quickly we can mobilize our feelings, and see how easily we can mobilize our behavior in the midst of, say, a domestic argument, when somebody knocks on the door and says you're creating a disturbance, or maybe there's a friendly visitor. Our whole orientation shifts. We're able to set aside all the negative emotional scenario of only a few moments ago and replace it with welcoming attitudes, happy, joyful, and so on and so forth. But what's behind it? What will other people think of me? Now, this kind of concentration, of course, is much more beneficial than a scattered waste of energy called arguing. But it is only temporary. And we can learn to perpetuate this. If we can do it for a small, limited period of time, we can extend it beyond that and engage our attention in a much more useful way, much more productive way. And the benefits to everyone really is increased efficiency, increased equanimity of mind when we do it properly, because something which is fixed doesn't move. How can you have an attention that doesn't move? In the 1960s and so on, there was this myth about concentration or meditation. You light a candle flame, put it in front of you, and you fix your gaze on it. Apart from damaging the eyes, what's happening? A torpidity comes in. Now, torpidity is one of the key obstacles to concentration. So we can see very clearly how that is a big obstacle for us. Torpidity, what do we mean? It means a kind of dullness which we mistake for a kind of mesmerization. In order to cultivate the knowledge that comes with this fixity, there are three traditional steps that are laid out to us in Vedanta. And one is called Savanam, that is what you're doing now, hearing, listening, not to me, but listening to what the scriptures are saying, what somebody else's experience is saying. Of course, it can be my experience also, but generally, scripture is second-hand knowledge, which we take on board and we listen to carefully. And listening can also be in the form of reading. In any event, we are paying attention. That is, our attentive faculty is being steered in a certain direction. And then, of course, dealing with the mind, we have the capacity to reflect on it. It's called manana. We can reflect on whatever we heard and taking it and disseminate it nicely throughout the whole mental field. and independently reflect on its validity or its depth. Lectio Divina is a Christian way of dealing with this. You pick up a passage from Scripture, something that catches your attention easily, and then you explore it. You go into a contemplation on it. Your reflection is called contemplation. And then we can't leave it there. We have to then meditate on it. This is nididhyasanam. We have to absorb ourselves into the subject matter. So we can take any object we like, actually, and explore it in a very scientific way. What is modern science doing is taking the objective universe and it is trying to explore what is it actually. And the only thing is that they're not really exploring it at the full depth of it. Because if they were to do it, they would see there are some subtleties which can be explored. The ancient rishis seems did not have all the scientific equipment that we have, that modern technology provides for us today. And yet they were able, through this power of concentration, to reveal everything there was about the external universe, but go deeper about the internal world of the mind. And this is how we have progressed, of course, that science has turned from the outside, it originally beginning as an understanding of the spiritual nature of its origin, exploring the creation, leading us to the creator. That's the old way. But also understanding the internal nature of the mind. This is psychology. So from the external, we come to the internal understanding. Now, spirituality, exploring the spirit, gives us a deeper understanding what is even there behind it. Even just logically, we can see the instrumentality of what we call the mind or the mental faculty, because we're able to observe it and we're able to change our mind. There's that joke, my mind is purer than yours. I change it more often, changing your mind and indecisiveness. But you see, we have the capacity to register what has gone on before. We're able to bring up memories from the past, impressions. We're able to transform behaviors. We're able to manipulate our attention and shift it wherever we like, not just when the external world drags our attention toward it, but in a chosen way. So without exercising this control, how can we concentrate? So we have to do it during the day. Reflecting, that aspect of it means thinking constantly of the subject matter. And what is the supreme thing worth concentrating on? Fix your mind on me, not fix your mind on your work, but fix your mind on me. This is the devotional language for this reflecting on Brahman. Brahman, the ultimate absolute source of everything. And so it means thinking constantly, constantly. After all, thought is a flow that is happening constantly. You may not be aware of it, but becoming aware of it is part of understanding where is my attention at any given time and what is the quality, as it were, that is in the mental field at any given time. Now we have the choice, as you know, of three kinds of characteristics. Sometimes the mind is in a state of torpidity. Sometimes it is in a state of extreme excitement and enthusiasm. And sometimes it is in the form of declutching our personality for the time being and experiencing an inner joy, which can be, of course, cultivated. It's the cultivation of this which we are talking about. So there are some obstacles that we need to overcome. Now, there are different kinds of obstacles mentioned by Patanjali in his Vedanta Yoga Sutras, very comprehensively dealt with. And so what are some of these obstacles? First of all, he deals with the physical aspect of it. What are some of the physical difficulties? The most obvious one is disease or ill health, we can call it. We can easily see how ill health takes our whole attention away from the object of our concentration. If we are asked to think of God continuously, or language such as pray without ceasing, and we wonder how we do it, and then Patanjali gives us this beautiful, beautiful answer. So he says, having, of course, subsequently identified that disease, mental laziness, doubt, lack of enthusiasm, lethargy, clinging to sense enjoyments, false perception, non-attaining concentration, falling away from the state when obtained, these are the obstructing distractions. So he is actually pinpointing it down very exactly. Anyway, it's worthwhile taking the commentary that Swami Vivekananda provides us with. These are enemies and obstacles, disease. He says this, the body is the boat which will carry us to the other shore of the ocean of life. What a beautiful poetic expression he gives. Imagine this body as a kind of boat designed to take us across the ocean of life. Now, we don't often consider this to be like that. In fact, the problem we have is identifying with this body, and previously Patanjali has mentioned it, as these kleshas, the obstacles, namely our ignorance. Ignorance of what? Ignorance of the fact of our own divinity and the divinity elsewhere. Interpreting the world as a permanent reality. And the central theme of that would be, it is all centered around my individuality, that is egoism, by definition, identifying the seer with the seen, identifying the one that is witnessing everything with all the people and places and objects and scenes and the whole field of observation in front of us. And then that leads us to the desire to perpetuate that. That is a desire for something which is pleasurable, avoiding something which is painful, going backwards and forwards, generally called attachment, and ultimately identifying to this clinging to life. Having thought that this little life is everything, we want to keep it going forever, and we cling to it. Look at the language. Clinging desperately to life. I may have mentioned before, I have seen people on their deathbed, some accepting it peacefully, but the most tragic witnessing thing is to see somebody desperately clinging to this small boat. It must be taken care of, he says. And healthy persons cannot be yogis. How do we take care of it? That's a whole subject in itself. And I think I may have given some lectures on it previously. But we have to be careful about the fuel we put into it. Let's call it, if we are using the analogy of boat, let's call it a motorboat. And we can also call it a sailboat. The mental arrangements that are entering into it, or that we allow to come into it, whether they are useful to carry us forward or not. Thoughts. And then one other thing, of course, is the body has to be exercised. No good keeping your boat in the garage. You have to take it and use it. And so all of these components together really would be to do with disease. Despite that, of course, the body will deteriorate. And so to keep the body healthy is a whole new arrangement. But you see, it depends how you're thinking of it. If you think of it as a boat to take you to the other shore. Unhealthy persons cannot be yogis. Mental laziness makes us lose all lively interest in the subject. Torpidity, mental laziness. We need vigilance all the time, at every step of spiritual life. Obstacles can be set the path until the goal is reached. The higher aspirant climbs, the subtler the obstacles become. Don't think that because you're on a kind of spiritual track that your obstacles become less, not at all. And if he is inadvertent, does not reach the goal and only injures himself. So for those practicing meditation, the Vedantic teachers will state there are 4 great obstacles. Narrows it down to that. Torpidity means a state of stupor. I can't be bothered. Lack of enthusiasm. Beyond lack of enthusiasm, another one will be distraction. While you're sitting, trying to meditate, even though we're trying, then the mental energy goes in many different places. It can be distracted by the senses. That means the external world. Or it can be distracted by the internal world. The internal world of worries, difficulties, doubts, fears. And then, of course, there is attachment itself. Our primary attachment is to our own individuality. I am so-and-so. Most love is love for your own self. And then, of course, even at a higher level, enjoyment of bliss is also registered here as a distraction. So we've dealt with all these various things comprehensively. We carry on with Vivekananda's commentary on it. Mental laziness is what we have just mentioned. We lose interest in the subject. I remember very clearly somebody saying, I went to a concert. I was there for 4 hours. I said, what great powers of concentration you have. What do you mean? I said, to sit there with your attention fixed for 4 hours. How wonderful. No, it was entertaining. So the thing is, when we sit down for meditation, does it interest the mind? Are we raising up full capacity of our imagination and honing up the colors and the forms to make it a delightful exercise where we canalize our thoughts in a certain direction, but it's moving in a chosen direction. So it's like driving a car. You have a certain destination in mind, and you don't stop off here and there every 5 minutes, making a delaying thing for your destination. Every distraction is a delaying thing. Now also remember, Swami Shivananda, Mahapurush Maharaj, in his latter days, would have many, many different objects on his bed. His bed because he had this apoplexy. And he had lost the use of one side of his body also. And so a brahmachari maybe, or a monk, asked him, why do you have all these different objects? And he said, it is to keep my mind down. In other words, he was deliberately using distractions in order to keep the mind away from the ultimate, because what use is that if he goes and gets absorbed in the absolute, something like that, then he won't be able to function as a president of the Mata mission. What a wonderful example of how distractions are taken deliberately, because most of us, it's in the opposite direction, this state of a scattered attention, scattered mind. Doubts will arise in the mind, says Swami Vivekananda, about the truth of the science. Which science? It's the science of the mind or the science of religion. Can religion be a science? Yes, because it's a psychological movement. Yoga is the psychological control by either using work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, one or more, all of these, preferably all of them. But even spiritual devotion, even love of God is absorbing your attention. You take all the great saints. Say today is the 21st, so 22nd, Monday. I think it's Monday. I may be wrong, but I think it's the 23rd. Is a celebration of the life of a great saint, very popular here in Ireland. So I have people here. Maybe I can ask who this great saint is. Or anybody here can answer. Yeah.
It's not Saint Patrick.
Yeah.
So Saint Columba.
Padre what?
Padre Pio.
There we go. Yeah. So I supplied half of it. Padre Pio. Now he was a man who celebrated the Mass for 4 hours, a 4-hour service. Most people in Ireland, I discovered as soon as I came to Ireland way back in 2006, I was surprised to know that the Mass that is done in Zimbabwe, that it takes about 2 hours each time, with singing and celebration and even dancing. Here, somebody will say to you, oh, you should go to this church. You'll be in and out in 20 minutes. His preaching is very short. And then we can enjoy the football or whatever it is. Why would something like that take 4 hours? It is because of Padre Pio's complete absorption, complete love of God, whereby he was physically, emotionally, in every way, totally had his mind fixed. This manmana bhava madbhakto, fix your mind on me, be devoted to me, that the Bhagavad Gita mentions. This complete fixation, so that he was in a state of complete absorption, samadhi, if you will, in the yogic language. So then, however strong one's intellectual conviction may be, says Swami Vivekananda, until certain peculiar psychic experiences come as hearing or seeing at a distance, etc., these glimpses strengthen the mind and make the student persevere. There are encouragements on the way. If you persevere, now persevere in what? Well, let's make it simple. In order to overcome these things, and he goes on, other things, the symptoms of lack of concentration would be grief. Grief ranging from dissatisfaction to outright, absolute, complete bereavement. Mental distress, that means worry about anything. You can take stock of yourself and see how much of the mind is absorbed in mental distress, maybe oriented toward work or activities, or maybe people, social, what people think, what people say. Tremor of the body. We can see this in the case of Arjun, this Arjun Vishada Yoga, this state that Arjun in, he cannot even hold his bow. He's in such distress because mental distress, grief, all these things that are mentioned affect the physical body, the nervous system straight away. This is demonstrable, by the way, and I've demonstrated it many times. Irregular breathing accompany the retention of non-retention of concentration. And that is why whenever we're in stress, one of the immediate activities we can do is slow down, count to 10 proverbially, and regulate your breathing. A little belly breathing to start with, and you see there's an immediate calmness taking over, and then revaluing a situation brings more calmness, and then that is bringing us more to a state of complete attention. So concentration will bring perfect repose in mind and body. Now, even before that, what is the way to concentration, a very simple formula that everybody can practice. Patanjali says, tad japaha tad artha bhavanam, the repetition of this one thing. What is this one thing? This one thing is Om. Now, repeating Om by itself, no. And meditating on its meaning is the way. This is good company. Let's look at the commentary. Why should there be repetition? Well, if you want to learn anything, there has to be a repetition. We repeat it until the necessity for repeating falls away. I don't think we have to repeat what our name is. There's no idea like this. Every time I repeat my name, Swami Purnananda, Swami Purnananda, then I have to take out my diary and write. How many times I use it? 5 times. I should write 5 times again and fill it up again. Nothing like that. So the reason why I don't have to repeat who I am, what my name is because I know it. What is knowledge? The cessation of the necessity to repeat something. So why should there be this repetition? And then he goes on, have we forgotten the theory of samskaras, which is previously retained? That means that every kind of action, thought, physical movement, every movement is recorded. It never goes away. It's recorded in our personal library called memory. The sum total of impressions lives in the mind, and according to our system carries on as well beyond this boat, this physical thing. They become more and more latent, but remain there. And as soon as they get the right stimulus, they come out. Molecular vibration never ceases. It's a remarkable statement from Swami Vivekananda before the discovery of Brownian motion. When this universe is destroyed, all the massive vibrations disappear. The sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, they all melt down, but the vibrations remain in the atoms. Each atom performs the same function as the big worlds do. So even when the vibrations of the chitta, just to remind you, chitta is that energy that is attracted and making a mental field or a possibility of mental movement. All of this subsides. And whatever happens on the individual level is happening on the grand cosmological level too. And so we can now understand, he says, what is meant by repetition. It's the greatest stimulus that can be given to the spiritual samskaras. One moment of company with the holy makes a ship to cross this ocean of life. Such is the power of association. And so this repetition of Om and thinking of its meaning is keeping good company in your own mind. Now, japa is recommended by all the saints of every single approach or every single religion. The Sufis do it. In the Muslim salu, it's done. Repetition is done. In Jainism, in Buddhism, in Hinduism, in Christianity, it is done. In Catholicism, it is done as repetition of the Rosary, or the Holy Name. In Eastern Orthodoxy, it is the Jesus Prayer, and St. Paul refers to it as to pray without ceasing. And there's a whole book on this, The Pilgrim's Way. How can we practically pray without ceasing? We take the mantra that is specifically valuable to you, otherwise how will you meditate on it? It has to have a meaning. And that mantra is the most powerful protecting thought that you have. Protecting against what? Against doubt and fear and temptation. Filling the mind up continuously with this. Is it done in meditation? Yes. Is it done outside of meditation? Yes. What should be done? Continuously repeat lovingly this sound embodiment in devotional language of your chosen ideal. The actual divinity coming to you as sound, as vibration. Keep it going, keep repeating it. You see, if you were to repeat affirmations, strong, true, wise, full, free, truth, beauty, goodness, love, harmony, continuously, there would be no room for negativity. There'd be no room for worry. There'd be no room for doubt. There'd be no room for anxiety. So it is pushing these things away. And on the same way, you are taking this power of attention and unconsciously steering it towards something that is more revealing, more positive. So this repetition of Om, he says, and thinking of its meaning is keeping good company in your own mind. Study and then meditate on what you have studied. Thus light will come to you. The self will become manifest. So now he's telling you a different thing, a separate thing, something that is also contained in these sutras and comes under the mortification, study, what is on study, repetition of japa, but also picking up some holy text on a regular basis and exploring it with this system of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. But how do we have time for doing that? Anybody has, and everybody has, at least 5 minutes to pick up a book and pick up a small passage and think and reflect on it. If you say, I don't have time for that, you don't have time, 10 minutes. Think how much time you waste in various other things. See how much time is wasted in worry and anxiety. Is it one of the biggest time wasters you have? And that is what brings your energy down. That is what makes you feel tired. Because the mind has no tiredness within it. Only an anxious mind has tiredness. But one must think, he says, of Om and of its meaning too. Avoid evil company, because the scars of old wounds are in you, and evil company is just the thing that is necessary to call them out. And it's not just physical company, social company. No, it's company that as you sit in a state of blankness, something will fill the mind. If you leave a house blank, you go away for 1 month, it will never be unoccupied. Spiders and rats and cockroaches will start to occupy it. Same thing with the mind. You let the mind blank and leave it alone, then other things will come, probably from your past. Yeah, what about this, poor that. I used to do this, now I'm doing that. I wish I could be back to that, etc. Or it may come from the future. Oh, like the train, as I often say. See, stand on a platform. Oh, what a pity, I missed the train. Well, what's the point of saying that? The train is gone. You can't take a fishing line and drag it back. Leave it, it's gone. Then the next thing is, oh, will the next train come? Will it be on time? Will there be a problem? Will there be a delay? Will there be many people on? Will it be crowded, etc., etc.? Well, if you work yourself up into such an anxious, nervous state like that, then can you say the mind is concentrated? No. So time is also connected with these distractions, how we use the time. And don't forget, the technique is simple. Every bad habit, bad means every habit that is not useful to you in the pursuit of this boat taking across the shore, taking across the ocean to the far shore of freedom, anything is called a distraction which doesn't assist you in this journey. So we have to take stock. What are these distractions, even though they're nicely classified for us? So let us make sure that we are attentive in the devotional language, manmana bhava madbhaktu, fixing your mind on me continuously. And when the mind wanders, bringing it back, a technique that we call abhyasa yoga. We notice it wandering off. Thank you, wander a little bit, now come back. Like taking a dog for a walk. The dog goes here and there. All right, I give you the freedom to sniff here and there a little bit, then I'll call you back. And once I call you back, you have to come back. An indisciplined dog won't do it. It requires training. In the same way, the mind has to be trained. So in the same way, we are told that good company will call out the good impressions that are in us, I might add in us already, but which have become latent. There is nothing holier in the world than to keep good company, because the good impressions will then tend to come to the surface. And this is the key to all spiritual activities, be it pilgrimage, be it attending religious services, provided we know the inner meaning of it. This is the key to real ritualism that directs the attention. And if you cannot meditate, then ritualism is the answer. Puja is for those who cannot meditate. And a mandir, derived from the same root, manas, mind. This is designed for meditation as a preparation. Because true meditation means one thought alone is left in the mind. And from this is gained introspection, that is the capacity then to meditate. And also the destruction of all the obstacles. What is the subject of today's talk? The obstacles in concentration, to concentration. And then, of course, there are specific thereafter what you do when the mind is nicely settled, when the mind is again conditioned to meditate. Well, here we can now resort to that chapter I mentioned, and that is the one which is on meditation itself. So, just to bear in mind that fix your mind on me, be devoted to me, sacrifice to me, bow down to me, thou shalt come to me, give up all worries about personal duties, take refuge in me alone, I shall liberate thee from all sins, grieve not. All of this language that is being used in the 18th chapter is really the climax of Krishna's instructions. But let's see what we have in terms of meditation. When the mind is completely controlled, yada viniyatam chittam atmani eva vatishtati. When the mind completely controlled, rests in what? Now we shift our language from the devotional language to the philosophical language, or the mystical experiential language, which we call simply self, Atman. When it alights and rests in the self, when that happens alone, free from what? Free from desire for objects. Having meditated probably in the beginning on objects, we are now using it to free ourselves from them. Then is one said to be established in concentration or yoga. Nespraha sarvakamabhyo yukta uchate tada. As a lamp in a windless place does not flicker, yata dipu ivatastone ngate so pamasmrta. This is the simile, the example, the metaphor used for a disciplined mind. Discipline the mind first, but this is what the effect will be of a yogi practicing concentration on the self, practicing, not seeing, let it happen instantaneously. It requires practice. Yet the mind, completely subdued by the practice of yoga, attains quietude. Then you know. And when beholding the self by the self is satisfied only with the self alone, because any other thing is what we call a distraction. Now, can we use distractions? Are there such things as distractions in meditation? I've told you previously, no. Because our point of view throughout the daily life is not only to see the divine within, but to see it everywhere. And that means that this whole world is a mix of sentience and insentience. The sentient part is what we call the self. And that is why the instruction on meditation says, he who sees, now he personalizes again in devotional language, very useful for us. He who sees me everywhere, yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati. He who sees me everywhere and sees all in me, he never becomes lost to me, nor do I become lost to him. What is this thing called losing? I'm looking for God. Well, he's not lost. There's no cosmic lost and found. You won't go and find him somewhere. He's sitting here, right here, where you are. When the train arrives, it carries you off, here and now. Neither the train that went, nor the train to come. It is right here, right now. When our attention goes off, away from this now, we can call this a distraction. Now, no harm, because our habit says, let it wander off. It may wander off, and bring it back. As long as we are aware, oh, off it goes, we bring it back, bring it back. And the way to remember, of course, constant remembrance is this japa, constant japa. This repetition of Om and meditate on its meaning. But also, the eyes see. What will they see? In meditation, we see this divine within us. But outside of that, when our eyes are open, we should see it everywhere else. And if we do that easily, then we'll see it within ourselves when we sit. He is established in oneness. When we see this oneness everywhere, worships me dwelling in all beings, then that one lives in me, whatever may be his mode of life, whether it is a clerk, whether it is an accountant, whether it is a retired person or a military man, or whether it is a student or even a person involved in IT. That yogi is regarded as supreme who judges pleasure and pain, or pain everywhere, by the same standard as he applies to himself. This is the golden rule. Not just seeing this in every being, but the application of it. The golden rule is there in every single religion in different forms. But be careful, because the golden rule is not he who has the gold makes the rules. Be careful of it. But if you do some action that is likely, if it were reversed on you, to bring pain in you. Now, this insertion of the word pain is unique in the golden rule. It comes from the Mahabharata. There was a whole series once at Trinity College on this golden rule, and I was asked to give a talk, and from our Vedic perspective. And I said, well, the one thing that we are careful to insert is this thing called pain. Otherwise, if you take it literally, if you do unto others as you would like them to do unto yourself, then the heroin addict will say, everybody should take heroin. I take it, everybody should take it. No, it's causing pain in me. If I give it to everybody, it'll cause pain in you too. Not only in you, but the whole of society. And here we have this definition I gave you earlier, a curious definition. Tam vidyam dukasam yoga vi yogam. Yoga samyidam. Sa nishena yoktavyo yogo nirvina chetasa. What should we call this yoga? Let the severance from the connection with pain be known by the name of yoga. In other words, yoga is actually viyoga, a separation. Yoga meaning a joining. This is a separation. Yoga is actually a separation from what? From pain. This yoga should be practiced. How should it be practiced? With perseverance and without depression of mind, which says, oh dear, I never practiced today. Oh dear, I failed in my practice. Oh dear, I never got success in my spiritual life. Oh, I failed again. No, this is all another form of distraction. So what should we do? We should positively play it like a game. That is why I call meditation in the subscript the game of guiding thought. The art of meditation, what is it? It's a game of guiding thought. Treat it in a sporting attitude. What occupies the mind at any given moment? It could be dull and lazy. Okay, you take it like a gear, you elevate it to the next gear. Activity, don't leave it there. Put another motion in the gear. Sattva. Sattva's characteristic, no selfishness whatsoever. A sense of gratitude, a sense of delight. And what should we rehearse? If we are talking to ourselves and it brings us down into a state of depression, we can also talk ourselves out of it by using affirmations. Strong, rise, full, free, truth, beauty, goodness, love. Create a counter habit. This is the scientific technique that Patanjali is using. That is, we have to all the time elevate the mind in a pure way, illumined way. And once the mind is saturated, then our natural condition is one of illumination. What is a saint? A saint is somebody who was a sinner, elevated his mind through perseverance and practice. Don't be discouraged by it. And when you feel this infinite bliss, which is perceived by a purified intellect and transcends the senses and established, then you'll never waver from the reality. Just as you never waver from repeating, or you don't have to repeat your own name again. Knowledge means I no longer have to repeat. Practice is transcended. Be careful. Don't think you're in that condition yet. We have a great example of this. Vishwamitra, who thought he had attained the highest, then got angry or got tempted or distracted in some way, had to start again. Perseverance, and eventually became a wonderful Brahmanyani. Well, I think that's gives you some food for thought on the overcoming the obstacles. Why do we put that language there, overcoming the obstacles? Because the glory of the Divine Self is already there. It's only that some obstacles are in the way. And just to remind you what those obstacles are, the obstacle of all obstacles, the mother of all obstacles. In fact, the only obstacle, and all the other obstacles are subsidiaries of it, is this ignorance. Therefore, the antidote is knowledge. Knowledge meaning understanding, unwavering conviction, whereby the mind is saturated with an empirical, real understanding, a vision. Ramakrishna's language, some people have heard about milk, some people have seen milk, but others have tasted. Those who have tasted milk will have the knowledge of milk. Now, those who are lactose intolerant, this message is not literal, so I'm just saying, using it as an example. All right. Well, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.